Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1089 just came out, and this was one of the coolest ways Oda could have possibly brought us back to Egghead Island. I think that this is one of the best setup chapters we've had leading up to, the climax of the arc that I can recall in recent memory. I remember a time not so long ago that many felt like the Egghead Island chapters were kind of boring in contrast to getting to cut away to what's happening with Blackbeard and Law, or the Shanks and Kid situation, or the Garp and Aokiji situation. If you all recall, I think this was the period shortly after Luffy had just defeated Lucci. The Straw Hats were, messing around with the Seraphims. We were in that whodunit Vegapunk plot, and people were kind of vibing with it, but I remember there was a general sentiment somewhat growing that the stuff outside of Egghead is where the real interesting stuff is happening. Now, I think the way Oda paced out this arc is nothing short of brilliant. I think that this is, by the end of this arc, I think we're going to be looking back at Egghead as one of the most masterfully structured arcs that Oda has ever done in terms of building to a peak level of excitement. Because, while it's true, there was a section of Egghead that, you had to get through the plot beats, you had to get through kind of the bit of mystery and everything like that. Maybe the mystery wasn't even that necessary because it didn't last that long, but you had to get through some setup stuff, and Oda was teasing us by cutting away to different things. Cool. Then we got the section, the oh-so-important section, where we just stayed away from Egghead for a while. The Straw Hats were fighting the Seraphim overnight. We moved away from Egghead, and we focused just on the outside world. And just having an extended section like that has done wonders for reframing our concept of what the Egghead incident is, and have us actually itching with anticipation to go back and see that whole thing play out. Because with the outside world stuff, we finally got the blanks filled in of everything that happened post-Reverie. We finally have so much context surrounding why this Egghead Island incident is so significant in the grand scheme of things. We now understand that moves are being made in the outside world by Im, by the Gorosei, and a lot of what is happening outside is writing on how the Egghead incident plays out. The weapon that was used, which was very likely Uranus to destroy Leloucia Kingdom, it was fueled by mother flames that are supplied by York. The world government needs York's supply to be able to use that weapon again. We open this chapter, we're looking at the effects of this weapon on the world, a single use of it. That's what's so crazy. And Oda took great time and detail to make it very clear. It's not just about removing one island from the world. This weapon is so dangerous that a single use of it changes the geography of the entire planet itself. This is basically game-breaking stuff that the world government almost has in their hands. All they need is York. And York is currently property of the Straw Hat Pirates. And this gigantic fleet that is being sent over to Egghead, now we have a greater understanding of why we always knew, Vegapunk and Egghead Island is so important, but now we understand that pretty much the fate of the world is practically riding on this incident. And what I also like about the time gap that Oda took for that, before moving back to Egghead Island, is that he got to add in more and more build up to the idea that this incident that's going to happen at Egghead Island, it's something legendary. The whole world is waiting on the outcome of this incident. It's not just a fight, against some Marines and everything like that. The spotlight is now on Egghead Island. Everything is kind of shifting towards Egghead Island. We get to see Im watching, and we now know so much more about Im's goals, Im's perspectives, what Im views as a threat, what he's trying to do. We don't have full concept of everything, but we understand that Im has certain goals. He wants to eradicate the will of D. We understand that the goals now for the good guys side, I suppose what you could say revolutionaries, Vivi, all of that, it's to raise the flag for the dawn of the world. The first battle for all of that, now we have context, it's at Egghead Island. Gorosei Saturn is being sent over to Egghead Island, and now, because of that break that Oda took to focus on the outside world, we understand why Gorosei Saturn is such a big deal. This is one of the war gods of the world government. This is actually an extremely strong character, very likely, that is one of Im's most powerful subordinates. And through him, we're going to get greater context into what Im is thinking and what Im's even more details on Im's goals. So much is about to come together on Egghead. It feels like what before felt like almost a minor conflict in ways. Like, yeah, we saw the ships and everything approaching, but we didn't really know what to make of the fight, and we're stuck dealing with the Seraphim and everything. By cutting away and making the entire outside world conflict sort of take shape, and then redirect to help us understand that the outside world conflict, right, it really is riding a lot on the fallout from what happens at Egghead. I think that is all brilliant writing by Oda, because in the span of just, one night, essentially, between last time we saw Egghead to now, my excitement for Egghead has gone through the roof. The final panels of this chapter. Well, first of all, let's just appreciate the flow of this chapter leading up to the final panels, which was, again, zooming out outside world, seeing the damage that the world government has done, wiping out the Lucia Kingdom, and the aftermath, the shockwaves, the wake of that destruction, affecting the entire world at large. Everybody, so many characters that we know from across the entire planet, they're all living in the wake of this nightmare, this Lucia Kingdom destruction, right? The tone of the first half of the chapter is very heavy, very foreboding, very dark, and Oda plays us like a fiddle. He's leading through that entire next section of the chapter with this conversation, this dangerous, ominous conversation between York and the Gorosei, and the idea that York is soon going to be able to, York got the better of the Straw Hats in a way. York's going to be able to supply them with Mother Flames and everything like that. The entire chapter, so tense, so scary, so serious, all leading up to, we the reader don't know what's happened to the Straw Hats yet, all leading up to that final double page spread just revealing the Straw Hats are themselves, they're alive, and not only alive, they are happy, they're chilling, they don't have a care in the world. They are the ones in control of this situation because they're the Straw Hat crew. We've seen them go through the ringer so many times. They're now a Yonko crew. York's not going to be able to take them out. The Seraphim are not going to be able to take them out. They're the ones who have taken over Egghead Island. And it's actually Kizaru, the Gorosei, all these vice admirals that are in for some trouble. The idea of it ending with York saying, "Save me from Straw Hat Luffy," is so insanely cool. Luffy is the threat now. Luffy is the threat. I feel like the Marines and the Gorosei and Kizaru, they're about to be the ones who realize that they might have bit off a bit more than they can chew. I might be overplaying it a bit too much because at the end of the day, they do have numbers and everything at their side, but just the tone of the way all of this was set up, it feels like Oda pulling the rug out from under us, of sort of setting things up like, yeah, it's going to be like, it's all death and gloom. The whole world has got its eyes on Egghead. The whole world is living in fear of the world government and everything right now. Everyone is about to come down on Egghead. They're all, in major trouble, right? And then revealing that no, Straw Hat Pirates are good. They're welcoming any sort of challenge. They're not fazed by any of this, and they're probably going to get away with it. I put that video out earlier this week about what it means to be Yonko. This is the arc that Luffy can really, really prove it. And I strongly recommend checking out that video if you get a chance, because it goes through a lot of parallels to Sabaody that people were making. And yes, this arc has tremendous parallels to Sabaody, but we're at a similar beat of Sabaody with Kizaru about to come down. The Straw Hats just fought the Seraphim, similar to how the Straw Hats just fought the Pacifista in Sabaody. But remember, after the Straw Hats beat the Pacifista in Sabaody, they were kind of beat up. They were almost at the end of their rope. They had realized that, hey, we might be in over our heads. Look at this right now. The Straw Hats have taken out the Seraphim. Yeah, they've suffered, they've got some minor cuts and bruises here or there, but they are absolutely confident in this scenario. They are not troubled whatsoever. It is a totally different vibe. It is like the reverse of Sabaody. They are ready for Kizaru. They don't care. Last time they were terrified of an admiral coming down on them. Right now, they probably know a lot of ships are coming. They probably know an admiral is coming. They probably know a lot of them. They've heard so much of this information through the phone call. They do not care at this point. They're so far beyond that. That is what is cool about One Piece. Getting to see Act 1, the end of Act 1, that's what's so cool about this final saga, comparing it to the final saga of Act 1, and seeing how in the final saga of Act 2, everything is different because the Straw Hats have grown, right? They've grown from their past mistakes, they're far stronger, they're far more developed, they are ready for this. Round 1, they weren't ready, round 2, they are. This chapter, just the flow of it, the setup of what's about to come, is phenomenal. And just quickly talking through some of the plot details that we got from this chapter. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think we got more details, obviously, I don't want to get too much into speculation, basically, but maybe I'll put out a video talking about the gigantic hole in the Lucia Kingdom and, what we might have seen of this before, whether it's Uranus, things like that. The idea of the Mother Flame essentially being what Vegapunk can provide for the world government to be able to use what I assume is Uranus. The deal that York has struck with them makes more sense. A lot of pieces falling into place. I think one thing that I would really like filled in right here is how the Straw Hats actually defeated the Seraphim, because that is an important question to answer. I hope that that's something that's answered in maybe the next chapter or in quick flashback form. I like the fact that Oda opted not to start this chapter with, he could have cut back to, I think most of us imagined we would cut back to Egghead and see that battle play out. Trotz finishing off the Seraphim in some way. The way Oda chose to do it is much, much more dramatic, much, much more interesting, actually leading in with an air of mystery and then showing us the aftermath and giving us a reminder and basically setting the, just setting the tone of what to expect for the rest of the arc. That like, look, you don't even need to see the Strahds beat the Seraphim. You should have had faith that they were going to come out on top anyway. That's great, right? Makes us really excited for what they're about to do, because I think a lot of us were a little thrown by the fact that they were having trouble with the Seraphim in the first place to begin with. That being said, I still think just to fill in that plot hole, I think it is important for us to understand how they defeated the Seraphim, because a big deal was made out of the fact that they didn't seem able to damage the Seraphim initially. I want to know, at the very least, we could headcanon that Luffy and Zoro maybe through Advanced Conqueror's Haki, that was the trick to doing it. I want to know how Sanji did it. How did Sanji defeat S-Shark? These things are important just because I think you shouldn't include a major question mark like that and then just hand wave it away later, and then the reader's got to guess at what happened. But that's a minor point. I do imagine that we will get that filled in quite soon. I also don't think that the Seraphim are just done for the rest of the arc, so it's interesting to see how they will come into play again. But in general, man, I think this whole chapter was the most exciting way to set up the climax of Egghead. And I really think what's really, really important for any story, and I think is going to happen with this arc, is just a general crescendo sort of feeling where you get the best stuff saved for last. Again, if at one point we were feeling like maybe Egghead's not as interesting as the outside world, I don't have that feeling now. I think Oda did a phenomenal job of a lot of exposition and build up in Egghead while cutting away to outside stuff, then end up a beautiful segment of just pure outside world focus that we got for several chapters in a row, showing us all of the crazy things that have happened in the past week or so and are happening simultaneously, concurrently on other islands, like with the Blackbeard Pirates and Garp, checking off all those boxes, then bringing us back to Egghead for a huge, fantastic, memorable finish. That's probably going to be one of the best conflicts we've ever had to close a One Piece arc. So Egghead Island, could not be more excited for the next set of chapters. I will talk to you all next week.